Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer podcast, where we are interviewing grooming professionals to try and bring their knowledge to you guys. I am sitting here with a very important guest today. She has been grooming for 29 years. Yep, that's one more year away from 3 decades. She has serviced as a groomer, a mentor, a business owner, speaker, and most importantly, a coach. She's a pet tech CPR and a first aid instructor. She owns a salon called Absolutely Perfect Pet Styling and TES Consulting. Is also a coach for the Dog Gurus Profit Network. Wow, that was a mouthful of an intro there. You guys can tell that she is mighty qualified to be here. Everyone give a warm welcome to Samantha Palya.
Oh, thank you, Alex, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. God, when you say a year away from 3 decades, part of my heart just sank. Like, as it's been
It
really
hits a
that
little
long,
home, doesn't it?
it's like way more than half my life, we'll say. So, but
But I
yeah,
mean, that speaks to your experience.
yeah, it's been a long run. It's been in a long run, and I'm happy to be in this industry. I love this industry. I couldn't imagine being in any other industry in the whole wide world. So and thank you for having me on to share my experiences, my story, or anything else you want to talk about.
Oh, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's funny for everyone that can't see the video right now. I mean, Samantha, you look pretty young for being in grooming for 30 years. Like, I mean, seriously, I mean that. I mean, how did you must have started very, very young. How did you get into all this?
Okay, so I have kind of a unique story. Like a lot of times when you talk to groomers, they all have that. When I was little, every dog follows me home, and I always had a million dogs. And my story was really, really different. I actually was scared of dogs growing up, and I liked dogs. I loved dogs, but when I was 5, I actually got chased down by a German Shepherd, and and you remember as a 5-year-old, it was very traumatic. But who knows? Now looking back, I'm like, did that really happen? But as a 5-year-old, that's what stuck with my mind. So fast forward, like, I don't know, 12 years later, I was working. My first job was actually McDonald's. And I was working at McDonald's. And this guy I knew in high school that I used to date, his mom owned a grooming school. And she happened to come in, and I waited on her. And she kind of said to me, "Hey, Samantha, would you like to kind of come in and try, washing dogs?" And, I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to do that." Even though I was still kind of scared of dogs. Like, I did not have like your traditional, like, "Oh, I always was around dogs," stuff like that. So I went in there and I was like, "Yeah, I'll try this." What I Part of it is, I think, because I still wanted to get the attention of the guy.
Right, I
But
was gonna say, so you literally went to this woman's grooming school because you were trying to get the attention of her son.
okay, I'm not gonna but probably yes. Okay, if I want to be completely honest, yes. And
So your
and
grooming
everyone,
journey started because your high school boy crush, his mom, mom ran the
well,
grooming school.
we were like high school sweethearts kind of a thing. So it was like an on again, off again thing. And this was my junior going into senior year. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna fast forward. But yes, to answer your question, yes, my high school sweetheart indirectly got me involved with it. I'm not gonna say he was happy at the time, but that's okay. So anyway, so I went to go be a bather at her school, which was actually right across the street from my McDonald's job. And so I was like, "Oh, we'll try it." And then from there, I actually wanted to go to college, and I actually thought about being a teacher, an elementary school teacher. And then I got into the world of grooming. I started bathing dogs. I went to the All American Grooming Show with her, kind of like to help her with their dogs and to walk the dogs, to wash the dogs. And I just fell in love with the competition, the grooming. I saw like a whole other world about it. And from then I was sold. I was completely sold. She was thrilled to have, me be so excited. And so, yeah, I actually graduated high school a half of a semester early, and then I went to grooming school. And my parents weren't exactly the happiest either that I chose it. Because they really wanted me to go to college, and they were convincing me like, "No, we want you to come go to college in the fall." And I was like, "No, I know this is what I want to do." And I was 17. And I started the business when I was 16, and I started like the grooming when I was 17. I said, "Let me just have the semester. Give me the semester. And if I don't like it, if you don't approve, then I'll go to college in the fall, kind of like, let's make a deal. And
Right.
so by that summer, I not only was graduating high school, but I was graduating grooming school the same month. I had a full-time job lined up, and I started my grooming competition career 3 months after I graduated school. So my parents actually ended up coming to the competition to see me, to support me, and because they've always been really supportive, even though this decision they weren't like all great about. After that, they were sold. They were like, yes, this is what you're meant to do. I never had to step a day into college. And yes, and from then I became a competition groomer, and I became a teacher within a few years. And then I opened up my own business at 21 years old.
Oh my gosh. And so tell me about that. So I know you said when you graduated, you kind of did both at once. You did competitions and you got a full-time grooming job. Did you
Mhm.
start in a private salon or did you start in a mobile fleet or tell me, what was that first one?
Yeah, I've always been in private salons. I did work in corporate for a small stint at Petco for a small stint. I really wasn't made for the corporate world, with how they do things. But yeah, I got my first job with it was called Wet Your Whiskers in Naperville, Illinois, and I got hired on full time thanks to a really good friend of mine. Her name is Andrea. I'm still friends with her to this day. She's actually the one who taught me how to hold my scissors back in All American in 1995. I mean, it's been a long time. So she actually got me my first job. And from there, I've had some of the best mentors myself. I was very, very lucky when I came up in the grooming world. I feel so blessed. Had got to watch people like Liz Paul. I got to watch Christina Pawlowski. I got to watch Sarah Hawks. I got to have, and because my mentor, Jean Mulcahy, she was friends with all these other wonderful groomers. I got the best because I got to travel with Jeannie, and I got to go to these, private learning sessions with them, and I got to go to shows. For a 17-year-old, that usually doesn't happen. You don't get to just travel the country,
So
and
stop there, pause. How did that happen? And now you're throwing out all these, legends of the space, and
yeah.
like you just like ran into them on the street, you know?
Well,
Like,
because
how did you find yourself in these circles?
well, because my mentor Jeannie. So I was like, at the time, I probably was looked up as Jeannie's minion. So Jeannie kind of had, because I was going to all the shows with her and her daughter Megan, and I was everywhere and anywhere with them. So you just kind of ended up there. And and then I said, well, and I was competing, and in 1998, I went to Hershey and I won Best Groomed Dog and Show and Best Groomer and Show. So when you're competing a lot, when you're involved, like I used to compete against Jay Scruggs and Suzeka. I mean, these are all people that I literally came up with in the grooming world. And to this day, I still see them at groom competitions and, say hi to them. We talk, we like, I don't know, it's such a welcoming industry because I know people get like kind of like, oh, I can't go talk to them or whatever. The truth is like you can go talk to anybody. If you want it, just go and talk to them. They're people just like me. If you see me, come talk to me. I love talking to people. I travel alone usually. I usually want people to talk to.
So what's interesting to me is you started grooming competitions right off the bat. Do
Mhm,
you think that that helped? I'm sure that was busy. I'm sure that was time consuming, and I'm sure that was like financially consuming as well. A
mhm.
lot of people have this conception that you have to wait until you know what you're doing to kind of start doing the competition gauntlet, even if they want to do the competition gauntlet is usually a
Mhm.
big question. Do you recommend people start early with competitions? Did it help you become a better groomer? Tell me why you started early.
So grooming competitions definitely helped me because you get to critique, you get to meet so many other people that are going to help you. Because when you're a competitor, you're in there just like everybody else. And the nice thing is, it's like you're not going in like it being a new groomer, competing against like, Mackenzie Murphy or like, Nadia. You're actually competing against people that are on the same skill level as you. And hold on, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, sorry about that. My phone was ringing. I didn't want to interrupt. You're not going against like these top tier people right away. You're in the entry level. A lot of the people are probably in the same level as you. They have the same fears as you. They have the same concerns as you. They have the same learning curve, because if they didn't, everyone would just be in one big group, right? So I definitely say the key to, getting into that is you want to practice. So just don't go in there cold if you've never done it. You want to take your time in with your dogs and, go to different seminars, learn from some of the people there in the open division, go. I'm not saying like everything online is correct, but go and there's plenty of things out there. There's so much education that you can watch, that you can buy, that you can go to. I mean, there's people like there's more education now than there ever was when I was in it. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have we were like doing like VHS cassette tapes and DVDs. I mean, it's like a long way from now. So yeah, I say competing. I just kind of threw myself in there. And in fact, my first dog I competed on, and like now I'm like, what was I crazy? Was an Airedale Terrier, and I was doing a hand stripping on an Airedale Terrier. So I mean, I always set the bar high. But no, I mean, I definitely think if you want to get in there, they have Rescue Roundup now. They're even having competitions out there now where you can actually get guidance in the competition just to get your feet wet. So there is definitely something for everybody if you want to do it bad enough.
So, I mean, it sounds like to me, if I were to start brand new tomorrow, it is worth it. If you can bite your fear off, it's worth it to go do some of these competitions, not only to become a better groomer, but I mean, that's the best way to meet all these people. I mean, your mentor was so important to you.
Mhm.
And you would have never kind of met all of these other mentors as well if you had never entered a competition to start with, right?
Yeah,
So the community aspect, I feel like, is just huge.
yeah, but I don't want to discard, if people don't want to compete, like you can still have a strong network, but you're not as much as online education is fabulous. And it is. I do every form of education. Like I go online and I've been in person and I still go to the shows. There is value to all of them and they're all going to have their place. And yes, you can get into a big Zoom and maybe, have some FaceTime with people, but nothing's better than getting into one of these trade shows or one of these groom shows and you're sitting next to somebody and you bond and you have friends and you can go out to lunch or you go to the mingles or the parties. I mean, you're not going to replace that. I don't care how great Zoom gets, because there's something about being like really in person amongst people that you can really relate to and talk to and just kind of get bounce off of each other. I actually went to Hershey, I think it was 3 years ago now. Yeah, it was a year after COVID. So it was maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, maybe 2 years. I'm sorry, there's been so many. And I travel by myself. Like I know a lot of people don't like to travel by themselves. I actually prefer to travel by myself. I like to, go to bed when I want, I like to eat what I want, I like to stay where I want, I like to be on my own schedule. So for me, it's great. But another reason why I really love traveling by myself is because, when you go with the group or people, you kind of stick together. You guys go to lunch together, go seminars together, you kind of stick together as a group. When you're by yourself, you actually get yourself out there a little more and you network a little bit more. And when I went a couple years ago, that's when I met Tommy and Kemlyn Stockdale from All for Groomers. And I met another really great friend I have. Her name is Sam Hutchinson with Bears Bites. And then I met like Maria, I met Kathy. Like these are all people that to this day, years later, I have very strong relationships with. And they're supportive friends. They're great. If they need somebody to talk to, I'm there for them. And you just may not get that if you're traveling in a group of people. You know, I traveled by myself this past Hershey and I got to have dinner with like Cliff Favor and Susan Marchetti. And I mean, that doesn't
Right.
happen if you're pre-planned with other people.
And on top of that, I mean, that doesn't happen if you're not going to the shows. So,
No.
one thing that Mary Okendo said on our first interview, actually, it was our very first episode that has stuck with me to this day, was you have to budget in every year a certain amount of budget to go to these shows, so that you have
Mhm.
no reason when that show comes to not go. You've already put it in your budget that you are going to go, because whether you learn anything or not, or whether you think you're going to
Mhm.
learn anything or not, being around people in the industry is so important on a
Yes.
regular basis.
Hmm. And Mary is so right. And that should be just like if you're doing a budget for your advertising, for your, phone system, for your, like, whatever it is, your bandanas, your bows, like, there should be a line item in your budget that says education. And there should be like live education, online education. Like, you can actually put them in separate categories too. And you also need to not only budget money, you need to budget your time for it. So don't wait until the show is 4 weeks away when you have dogs booked and you're like, oh, I can't go, maybe next year, right? Everything is maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next year, right? We need to say, no, next year I want to go to Hershey and I'm blocking off my time today and I'm going to save X amount of dollars per week so I can make it happen, or I'm going to save my tips, or I'm going to, like, however you got to do it. But whether you own a business or you're just a groomer working for yourself, or if you're working for someone else, your personal budget, your work budget, or your business budget should always include education in there.
Absolutely. And it seems like you've got quite the knack for, educating here, right now about running business stuff. I would attribute a lot of this probably to your experience of starting a business when you were 21 years old. Take me back to that. What was going on there? I don't know many 21-year-olds that are going out and starting grooming salons.
Well, I can say it was a good thing I was a really good groomer. But things business back in 2000 was a lot different than 2023, right? So, I actually set up shop and I actually had another person there, but we both kind of we just basically shared the space, but we ran our own. Like we had our own phone numbers, we had our own everything, right? So, I kind of was under like, oh, as long as I do a good job, I'm going to get referrals, because at the time it was word based more than, reviews, internet, all this other stuff, SEO, search optimization, and online presence, and all this stuff, right? So, it was kind of like word of mouth. And yeah, I'm not going to say I opened up my doors and the flood started. It didn't. There was times where maybe I was a newer business and I had to go work for someone else to make sure I could make my ends meet. The good thing at the time, though, I was living with my parents, so it's not like I had to worry about a mortgage. It wasn't like I had to worry about, I don't even think I had a car payment at the time. I mean, I had like my cell phone bill, my insurance, and like whatever I had for the shop, And I was, at the time, I was willing to go in, whether it was morning, night, evening, just to make things meet, right? You kind of have that curve where you have to do it. And then, so this went on, and slowly but surely, you get that base, and then you're expanding and expanding, you're expanding. And I expanded a few times. And when I went into my building, now I bought it. And about a year or two after I bought it, I kind of ran into a slump. And this is why I love telling this story. It's a very vulnerable story for me, but I love telling it because I want people to understand, like, it's okay and it can be okay. So I ran into a slump, and it's not like the grooming quality changed. I felt like we still put on a good product, but here's the thing. I was missing something big. I was a groomer that owned a grooming salon. I wasn't a business owner that knew how to groom. So I actually had to dismiss an employee, and her mom decided to go on to all the social media like Yelp or whatever was there, and basically just slander me and my business and everything else. And so I was like, I got like some notification or something. And my husband's like, we were just newly married. And he was like, who does your online presence? Who's taking care of that? And I said, my what? You said your online presence. Who's managing your online presence? And I said, what's that? Like, I literally was like, what are you talking about? He's like, the stuff like your reviews, your website, this, like your online presence. That's how naive I was. And I said, oh, no one cares about that. He's like, yes, they do, Sam. You got to, So after like looking at the reviews, because I never really did it before, I was like, I didn't have very many. And this one was what people were saying. So like a light bulb went off. So thankfully for my husband, we kind of started looking into things about businesses, and he was like telling me, educated me a little bit. Well, then I took that and I ran. I went to an IBPSA, because the grooming, now there's fortunately so much more. At the time, the grooming shows didn't really have business forums. It was more about grooming dogs, which is great, but there was a big part of that missing. So I went to the IBPSA, which is they really Pet Business Association and International Pet Boarding and Pet Association. And so I went there and it was all business stuff. And I just dived right in. And then from there, I found the Doggaroos, which is an organization about how to grow your business and how to, make your business actually, like if you want to retire and have an exit strategy, and how to set up a mission, vision, and purpose statement and all this stuff, right? So I really I signed up for that. I got into that. And then I was like, a monster was created, because then I totally changed. So I went from a
And
groomer to an entrepreneur from doing that. Yeah.
and what was the result? If like going back to
Oh,
your, to your slump, you went and you kind of dove off the deep end in this
yes.
business that was missing. What was the result of the original shop?
So it didn't happen overnight, as you can imagine. So I don't want everyone think it happened right away. It does take time, because there was a lot of things I had to correct. There's a lot of things that I've learned that maybe wasn't the right, or maybe could have been done better, and the outreach. And I mean, now I was grooming in the salon. I only had like maybe one or two groomers, and it wasn't like busy. Now I am looking for even more groomers to work with, and we're busy, like we're booked out. I don't even groom in my salon anymore. I am retired from grooming, but my staff, and I'm so blessed, because I attribute all this because I did that. And the reason why I'm saying that is I know that having employees, a lot of people say, I'll never have another employee again, or they're just too difficult, or they just don't want to deal with the headaches. And yes, I understand it could be difficult, and it's not always like, oh, it's not always on cloud nine. But if you're a strong leader, and if you put your practices in place and your processes in place, and put your SOPs there, and have your employee handbook, and you have all the things in place, it's actually going to make your team stronger. And when I got hurt a year ago this past May. It was like I was on my way to retirement. I was doing a little bit off. But I got hurt at home, and it ended my career as a groomer instantly. So this was something that I didn't have in my plan, right? Like I was planning on retiring, actually January of next year was my plan. And so I had my plan where I was taking off a day every year until I was, phased out, we'll say. Well, it happened in an instant. And for anyone who has had that happen to you, or your choice is made for you and you don't make your choice, it's kind of like even a football player that gets a life ending career, right? And then before they know it, you have to figure something out. And you have to reinvent yourself, and you have to re-identify yourself. And I mean, that's a whole nother part that you have to deal with. Well, the one saving grace I had is my team was put in place, and we never skipped a beat, because they continued on as if I was there. They're a strong team. They knew what they were expected. There were some things that were, trying to figure out, like if I was coming back, if I wasn't coming back, that kind of thing. But overall, they run the ship, and I don't even go there, but maybe once a week now.
I mean,
So,
that's amazing. That's fantastic. And I bet every groomer listening that owns their own salon or wants to own their own salon one day is wondering, I mean, how do you set up your shop? Like, how do you set up, like, what do you need to have in place so that I could walk away from the business tomorrow?
okay, so you definitely want to have it's got to start first off with your leadership. You need to have good leadership in. So if you're not, if anything for business owners, if you do have employees, you got to make sure you are exercising good leadership skills, because we learn, right? Like me as a groomer, I learned from my leaders, right? And just like people now are learning from leaders like us. You have to look like, what do you value in your leaders, and what do you want your team to value? So you got to start really taking on your leadership role. Don't be their coworker, be their leader. Okay. And then from there, you definitely have to have things put in place, like a budget, like your standard operating proceedings, like job descriptions, employee handbooks. You got to have safety data sheets. And everyone's like, well, why do you have to have all that? Because if your employees do not know what your business, vision, mission, purpose is, that's your goal for your employees, for your business, for your clients, right? If everybody is kind of beating to their own pace, and kind of, there's no structure, you can't work together in a cohesive measure for the business owner to get out of there. You have to instill it, whether you have one employee or 20 employees. Everyone's got to have the same expectations. They have to know exactly what's expected, like for their job. They have to know how to do their job. If someone's not there, they should be able to read it or do a video, You know what I mean? They should have all this stuff put in place to make, and the reason why is it's going to help them succeed. So they're not relying on you to come in to say, okay, now fix this because I don't know what to do.
So it sounds like if we were to sum all of that up, it's it
All the
was
stuff.
a lot. Yeah,
All the
I'll
stuff.
sum it all up, right? It was leadership,
Hmm.
A, and B is processes. And processes are really important. A,
Hmm.
leadership is to set expectations, is to set proper training, proper education, etc. But B, processes are really important. And
Hmm.
so if they are well trained, if they understand what the overall team goal is, what everyone should be working towards,
Hmm.
all they have to do is follow a set, understood set of processes so
Hmm.
that everyone can reach the goal together. That's what it sounds like. Now, I know
Right.
that sounds very intimidating, I'm sure, for a lot of people out there. It sounds like you've got it all together, obviously, right? Do you have, I mean, what are some practical things that people could do in their salons today to start taking one slow step at a time towards that exit strategy?
Okay, so if I had to give, if like, because I'm a coach, right? So this is what I work with people to achieve these goals. Okay, and believe me, I understand because one of the biggest problems that us as, and I'm gonna include myself in this, as business owners, right? There just never seems like there's enough time to actually work on your business because you're always in your business, right? You're always like, if you're still grooming dogs, you're grooming dogs, or you're dealing with clients, or you're dealing, there's always stuff you can do being in the business, and you got to take yourself out of your business. I would start, your number one step is going to be look at your calendar, block off 2 to 3 hours. If you ideally want to do a week, but start with 2 days a month just to start. And before you have your set that meeting up with yourself for yourself, and you should start working on what your mission is, what your vision is, and what your purpose is. Because if you don't know where you want to go, you can't get there. So we need to set up these points, right? And then from there, after and then directly after I started figuring, and believe me, putting together a mission statement, even though it's like literally one or two sentences, for me was hard because you got to capture it all, like right in 2 sentences, like oh, and not make it sound like a run-on sentence. But your vision, you need your vision because you need your employees and your staff and anyone that's going to work for you. They have to see what where you want your business, what you want for your business, what you think of your business. And think for employees, it's going to help you too, because if they're not buying into your vision or your purpose, they're not going to be an ideal employee for you. So you might as well just not even go on that route and just find somebody else, because all it's going to be is a headache. There's going to be a person in there. But I would say after that, you need to start making sure that if you have employees or if you want to hire employees, get your job descriptions done. Those are the things I would definitely do.
And you can't do the job descriptions without the mission and
Mhm.
with the mission and the goals and all of that sort of stuff. So it seems like, okay, if we were to practically step forward, first set up some time with just myself to go
Mhm.
over what my mission statement is, what my values are, etc. Once I have that, I can craft job descriptions. And
Mhm.
once I have job descriptions and employees, then we're going. Then we can, we've at least established some sort of business, right? We might think we have a business right now, but at
Mhm.
least something that we could step away from and someone could come in and understand what's going on.
Well, a lot of people, and this was hard for me to hear when I was in the position. So I'm not trying to say this because I feel like I'm pointing my finger at anybody or I'm trying to be like, oh no, listen. But this was a reality step for me myself. When I went to the IBPSA, I went into a seminar and it was an all day. I mean, it was like a college education. Well, it felt like it to me because your brain hurt by the end of the weekend. And it was 2 strict days called pricing for profits. And they literally took you through like a budget and this and that, like everything, right? And the one thing that the guy said was his name is Jeremy. He said, you may think you have a business to sell, but if you're working in your business and you are the business, you don't have a business to sell because you can't sell yourself. So for people that want to retire and have somebody buy their business like a corporation, and is you have to have these things put in place. They even want to go as far as having the right manager in place to see an investor that is serious about coming and buying your business is not going to come in and groom dogs. They're not going to come in and wash dogs. They're not going to come in and delegate. They want that stuff put in place, and that's when you're going to get the most money for your business. But if you're the one doing it, they're not going to look at it as a business. They're going to see you are the business, not your business is a business. And there's a big, and people feelings kind of get hurt because they're like, but I have all these clients and I have, yeah, but if you took yourself out of the equation, if you were not there, who would fill your spot? And if you don't have an answer for that, I can tell you right now, an investor's not going to come in and groom dogs.
I mean, I think you're dead on. I mean, if you can't remove yourself
Mm-hmm.
from the situation, you are the business, which is great. And a lot of people make a lot of money and have a
Oh,
great lifestyle doing that. But if you
yes,
ever hope to exit the business, you have to find a way to systematize what you do so someone else can come in and do that.
exactly. If I were, okay, so I got hurt, right? If I didn't have my systems in place, even if I had people working there, right? And like, let's say that I couldn't go back to work. I would have had to make some very hard decisions. Either A, I'd have to go to back to work in an unsafe manner, being hurt, and possibly at that time, I couldn't close my hand, so I'd be putting dogs at risk. So it'd be a really irresponsible thing on my part, right? So I'd be going in, me being hurt, the dogs possibly getting hurt. B, I would have to close up my business because if I wasn't in there, right, and my business couldn't run without me, I'd have to close it up, right? Or C, I would be just kind of like winging it and then having more issues and just kind of figuring out like what goes on. But when I left my business, like when I literally say, besides calling off the people that I had scheduled, like the next day, and then we even managed that because we have a process for that, right? Nothing detrimental happened to the business. My business went on and moved forward. And that's where we have to say sickness can happen anytime and injury can happen anytime. Our lives can change anytime. So as business owners, you have to say, if you can't even set up twice a month, 2 or 3 hours to have a meeting with yourself, that should be kind of a wake-up call. Like, how am I going to sell a business if I can't even get out 2 or 3 hours? And believe me, even that 2 or 3 hours is going to seem like a lot. Like, how am I not going to be there? But once you actually get in there and you do it and you see that, okay, this is going to benefit my business, it's going to benefit myself, it's going to benefit everybody, or it's going to grow my business, it's going to sustain my business, it's going to thrive my business, whatever. Then you get more comfortable with it. And then maybe you do it once a week, and then you do it twice a week. And then your mind shifts to, I shouldn't be in here grooming dogs. I should be in here driving my business. And then how do I do that? How do I make that happen?
And so, I mean, absolutely, you're so dead on. Tell me, I mean, right now you had mentioned. Oh, there we go. I glitched out for a sec.
Oh,
You had mentioned that you stop by your salon maybe 1 day a week.
mhm.
Um, Are you so you obviously didn't, quote, unquote, "sell" the salon, you are still
Hmm.
the owner, is that right? Yep, so you're still the owner.
Yep.
You only have to show up once a week because you've pulled yourself away from it. The
Mhm.
business still goes and grows on its own. You are the
Mhm.
business driver on the outside.
Yep.
I mean, that is congrats, that is remarkable. I feel like that is
Yeah.
the, silver bullet, that is gold at the end of the rainbow that a lot of people are looking for. Um, Give us an idea, I mean, what's the scale of your salon right now? How many groomers do you have working? How many dogs are you guys pushing through a day? Um,
Huh. Well, we don't book by dogs because we're not okay. So we have 4 full-time groomers, we have 3 bathers, we have 2 receptionists, and we have a reservation specialist. And we're still actually looking for a few more groomers. And I had an apprenticeship program that went through, so I grow my own groomers. And because I am a mom and I have all these other things going on, and I have another wonderful opportunity that may be coming along next year to grow groomers. So I kind of put a pause on it, even though I got a couple people coming through down the road. We are still looking to fill a few more spots, but we actually don't book by dog anymore. We book by unit. So once the doodle craze actually came, like when I was grooming, I'd say, oh yeah, I can groom 8 dogs a day. But when I was grooming, it was a lot of Shih Tzus, Westies, Schnauzers, you're talking about like little dogs, you know, now we got these doodles that have a variety of shapes, variety of sizes, variety of coat types. They take all different times. Are they in good condition? Are they in bad condition? And I didn't want to burn my groomers out. So what I did is I broke it down to, you should know your hourly production rate per person because what I can do is not going to be the same somebody else can do. A newer groomer can't do what an experienced groomer is. There's a whole education plays a big part of that as well. So here's the thing is, so I broke it down to every person in the salon when they're grooming has to say a basic groom. There's a regular all off small dog. How long is the average time it takes you? It takes you an hour. Okay, fine. Your 1 unit equals 1 hour. So now if you think you have like a doodle that might take you 3 hours because it's a hand scissor all over, it's going to take a long time. And we have bathers too, just so you know. But if for some reason that's going to be a 3 unit dog. So they book themselves not like one dog and then they have like 5 or 6 other dogs afterwards. They have so many units they do in a day. And once those units are filled, that's what they do. So they might have, 8 small dogs. They might have one large dog and maybe 2 or 3 small dogs and then maybe a bath dog. So it's hard to really say how many dogs we do because we don't base it off of dogs, but we are fully booked every day and we're open 6 days a week. And every third week we're open on Sunday because we do cats on that Sunday. So and we actually need to be open 7 days a week. And once we fill more spots, we are going to look open to film those opening up another day during the week.
Amazing. And have you guys seen, I'm curious about this, since you've stepped away, have you seen revenue grow?
Yeah, I mean, at first there was, like I said, there was a little bit of learning curve because I wasn't in there. Even though I was grooming like 2 days a week at the time, I still groomed a lot of dogs. Like I was generally a really fast groomer. So I would fill up my book, because I love money and I wanted to always do stuff. So there was a little bit of a shift. But here's where this is where being a business owner and staying at home and looking at your budget, looking at your expenses, looking at things you need to get, things that you have to do. You start focusing on, is my price point correct?
But
So
this is one thing I wanted to ask you about. How does your budget influence your pricing?
as you can't do pricing without knowing your budget. You can't know what you need to bring in if you don't know your expenses, right? It's like you don't know if you can do improvements if you don't know if you have what kind of money you have coming in. And you should know like we do a breakdown on a monthly sheet, how many dogs we groom, but also how many units it equals out to, how many walk-in nail trims we have. We figure out what our service structure is so we can forecast what we know, and then we keep it for years so we can forecast where we're at for next year, where we were last year, because all these numbers, number one, they don't lie, right? And it's not an emotional decision. It's a factual based decision based on what your numbers are telling you, right? And then if you know that, okay, you have a project that you need done. Okay, let's just say you want to get another tub in or something. Well, how are you going to pay for the plumber? How are you going to pay for the, all the stuff? Well, you can't just put it in and then hope to pay for it because that's where owners get in trouble, right? We kind of go, oh, I'm going to pay for it. So if you start saying, okay, I need to start putting aside X amount of dollars, or I need to come up with X amount of dollars, let me look at my expenses. Is there something I can come out that I'm not using? Is there something is there a service I'm not charging enough for that I can up? So, but having those side by side, you have to have your expenses and you have to have what your charges are. They need to make sense. It can't, so many times I hear people use it as like, oh, well, I don't want to charge my clients more because they pay enough. Well, but you're saying that, not the client. You know what I mean? And we went through a rebranding, and not even on purpose. It just naturally kind of happened, right? Because here I was a groomer that was grooming, and I was in the thick of it. I wasn't doing my budget. I wasn't doing my expenses. And I just figured, oh, I can groom more dogs and I'll make all the money up. When that possibility got taken away from me, I said, well, I can't go and fix things anymore, right? And I don't want to come in and fix things. I want to retire and I want to work 2 days a week and have all this played in point. So how can I make these numbers fit to what I need? But if I don't know my numbers, I can't tell you what my prices should be, and don't assume clients are not going to pay for it. Don't, just because you're not going to pay for it doesn't mean your clients aren't. If you give a good service, if you're trustworthy, if you build those relationships with the pet parents and with the pets, they are going to pay. Like I always say in my seminars, happiness sells, right? Happiness, and this is why I love enrichment grooming. The dogs are happier, the pet parents are happier, enrichment sells, happiness sells. if they're going to go down their street for $25 and their dog doesn't look good and their dog's not happy and they don't feel like their dog had a good experience, and maybe you're charging $80, they'll pay that $80 for their dogs to have a good experience.
I mean,
They
you're
will.
so right. I feel like people are just scared to ask a lot of the times.
This past year we did a real sizable price increase because cost of inflation, right? Cost of labor,
How much? Let's put some numbers to it.
we did 15% of all the dogs, 15%, which, years ago average was like 3%, but with the price of inflation, and people got to remember that you have to not only just cover your costs, you have to add in the profit margin too. So you can't just say, what am I going to do? Yeah, that's great if you don't want to take home a paycheck. But if you were to take home a paycheck and you want to pay your staff and offer benefits and really have yourself, like a good foundational team, you're going to have to pay them. No one wants to work for peanuts. You have to include that in on your price points. You have to think, what is the number I'm going to need to have this happen, right? But here's the thing. You also have to give that service. So don't do shoddy work. Don't have bad customer service. Don't, have an attitude when they walk through the door. Give them good customer service. Do a beautiful job. Clean those dogs. Dry those dogs. You know what I mean? Interact with your clients. Like, this is still a very much relationship built industry, whether it's with the pet or the people, right? And when you have that kind of how can I say that culture in your business, it's going to show, and people are going to think about cutting out something else rather than your grooms. I've been around long enough for the recession. I've been around for 9/11. I've been around during the housing bubble that crashed. I mean, I know that we've had slow times, but my business is still standing after 23 years. Actually, this year, I just realized that it just happened October 1st. 23 years in business, and we're still going strong.
That's amazing. You keep talking about how important it is to know your numbers and know the budget. I mean, how are you what tools do you use to stay on top of that right now?
Well, I did use some. It's called the budget toolbox. I use it through, and you can do this through a lot of different. I know that if you go on Google, you can Google, they have budgets, stuff like that. I actually use the budget toolbox through the Doggaroos because they put together this, and I'm not gonna lie, at first I was very intimidated by it because it's all Excel, but they put the formulas in for you. It does the math for you. You can play around with it. It's great. That's what I use. But if you're not ready to jump in and do that, even if it's more time consuming, but either way, you're going to have to get your data. So just remember that you're going to need to know, you're going to have to roll out what your bills are, your credit card bills. You're going to get your bank statements. You need your profit and loss statements. Like, you're going to need to do homework before this. And I'm not going to say that you're going to be like, oh yeah, I get to do a budget, but you can even start doing it on pen and paper if that's what you're comfortable with. Just anything that's going to show you, wow, this is what I'm spending on rent. This is what I'm spending on shampoo. This is what I'm spending on miscellaneous, like just stuff. And sometimes you don't even really realize what you're spending until it's on that paper or on your, screen, or you see that bottom line, you're going, oh my God, I spent this on this. And then you start thinking, well, do I really need this? Can I cut back on that? And if you can't cut back your expenses, then you need to think about how you're going to increase your revenue and how you're going to, increase your sales. And I know a lot of people don't like being salesy. I'm not the best salesperson, at least I wasn't either. But if you're really, truly recommending products, services to the pets and the people that you really think is going to enhance their lives or enhance their grooms, enhance their skin, make them healthier, whatever, right? You're not really selling, you're suggesting. And if you can get your clients to even buy extra $5-10 a day with add-on sales or merchandise, whatever, you're going to see your bottom line grow. And if you're really stuck on how to do this is when you get a business coach like me to help you.
That's perfect. So let's wrap it there. I mean, Sam, if people want to sign up to get more business coaching from you, how can they find you or get a hold of you?
Okay, they can actually, there's a couple things. I have a Facebook page called The Enrichment Stylist. Please jump on there. You can message me. You can get me through there, or you can email me at theenrichmentstylist@gmail.com. And then just send me, like a short email saying like you're interested in some coaching. I do for everybody before I even sign you up. I do a free 20-minute strategy call with people to see if we're even compatible together because, everyone's chemistry, right? So we will do that strategy call and we'll see if we think it's great to move forward. If I'm a good fit for you, you're a good fit for me. And if we are, then we move on to, hopefully a lifelong relationship of coaching. There's my
Amazing, amazing. I mean, I know if I was starting up a salon or in the muck, running one right now, I could definitely use your help. It seems like you've not only seen a thing or two, but you've studied a thing or two about this, and that's why you're coaching today. So
Yeah, I went from being someone that didn't know what to do to coaching people through it. And if I can do it, anyone can do that. And that's why I love telling that story because you don't have to, be a mathematician. You don't have to be gone through college. I never spent a day in college in my life, but there are fundamentals. And if there's a coach out there that you feel like you can relate to, reach out to them. I'm sure they'll happy to help.
for sure, for sure. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. You are
No, thank
a
you.
wealth of knowledge. I'm sure everyone will appreciate, hearing all those business tips.
Well, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed my time today.
Cool. And that's the pod.